Have you ever felt the gnawing doubt that something is terribly wrong, but couldn't prove it? That was my life. In a marriage once filled with love, I found only cold stares, half-finished conversations, and shadows I couldn't ignore. When suspicion turned to resolve, I made a choice. To uncover the truth, no matter the cost. What I discovered went far beyond infidelity. It unraveled secrets woven deep within her family, a web of deception, betrayal, and hidden lives. This is the story of how, in the search for justice, I found something even more unexpected: freedom. Stay with me to see how far the betrayed can go. I never thought I'd reach a day when the idea of spying on my wife would cross my mind. But there I was, teetering on the edge of a choice that would forever change our lives. It didn't start with suspicion. It started with a slow unraveling of things I couldn't put my finger on. A look that lingered too long on her phone screen. The muted laughter when she thought I wasn't paying attention. All small things, too insidious to confront, but they began eating away at me. I could feel my trust in her slipping away with each passing day. It was a suffocating feeling, like drowning silently. There was a time when our relationship was filled with dreams, wild promises, and long nights talking until dawn. Now, we barely exchanged more than a few words in the morning, and those moments were tense, carefully chosen. I spent many nights staring at the ceiling, wondering where I'd gone wrong, thinking maybe it was something I'd failed to give. But I couldn't bear this darkness gnawing at me. I needed to know, even if that knowledge would tear me apart. The decision didn't come easily. In fact, it haunted me for weeks, lurking just below the surface until, one night, I found myself in front of the laptop, searching for hidden cameras. My hands were cold as I scrolled through options, trying to convince myself that maybe, just maybe, I'd find nothing at all. But deep down, I knew there was no turning back from this. Every morning, I found myself pulled to the footage, my heart pounding as I clicked through each clip. I'd spend hours watching, each second stretching into an eternity, hoping to find only routine, mundane scenes that would let me breathe again. But the calm didn't last long. One evening, there she was, Karina, sitting across from a man I recognized only vaguely. He was lean, confident, a soccer coach from the gym nearby. She looked at him with that smile, the one I hadn't seen directed at me in far too long. As I watched, a strange, twisted feeling grew in my chest. I was a mix of dread and something else, something I hated to admit. Seeing her like that, poised, laughing, almost glowing, left me feeling conflicted, like I was some ghost witnessing a life that wasn't meant for me to see. Her gestures, subtle and cautious, hinted at a comfort I hadn't felt from her in months. And yet, I couldn't stop watching. Then came the family. At first, I thought her sisters were bystanders, unaware of what was unfolding in her life. But soon, I found them tangled up in their own secrets, their own deceptions, slipping into dark corners and quiet meetings. One by one, each of them revealed layers I hadn't suspected, like players in a game I hadn't known existed. They looked and acted so normal, yet every detail, every hidden smile or side glance, peeled away a piece of the perfect facade they so carefully maintained. With each discovery, I found myself sinking deeper into the twisted web of their secrets. What had begun as a quiet investigation into Karina's life became an exposure of her entire family, each new recording a revelation more disturbing than the last. Her sisters, her cousins, everyone seemed embroiled in some clandestine life. I watched them as they moved through their days, seemingly respectable and clean, yet carrying on in shadows, like they had nothing to lose. It became almost surreal. I was an outsider looking into a world that mocked the very values they preached: loyalty, respect, and trust. They wore these ideals like a shield, yet one by one, they shattered them in dark rooms and hurried whispers. Their gatherings, family dinners, the warm embraces, they were nothing but performances. I began to question if I had ever truly known these people, or if I had been deceived from the start. As the weeks passed, my intentions shifted. The ache of betrayal dulled, replaced by a sense of control over what I knew. They believed their lives were perfectly protected, and for the first time, I felt a strange satisfaction in knowing just how vulnerable they really were. I was collecting their secrets, holding them close like pieces of a puzzle I would finish at the perfect moment. It was almost addictive, this power over their hidden lives. With the evidence piling up, I felt a calm, calculated resolve settle over me. I wouldn't let emotions dictate my next steps. Each move needed to be measured, each action purposeful. I started with her sisters, the ones who'd built their lives on comfort and deception. Quietly, I began to release small hints of what I knew. Nothing obvious, just subtle clues left here and there, enough to plant doubt in the minds of their husbands, enough to make them question what was real. Watching the carefully crafted lives of those who had pretended so well begin to crack was satisfying. The facades they'd worn so confidently started to slip, bit by bit. Their glossy, polished worlds, built on the lies they shared with each other, were slowly fracturing. And it was all because of the secrets I had uncovered. They had always presented themselves as superior, as untouchable. But beneath it all, they were just as flawed, just as broken as anyone. Then came Karina's turn. I held back, letting her believe that nothing was amiss. She moved through her days unaware, her secrets woven seamlessly into her routine, until one night, she found a note. Nothing accusatory, just a quiet reminder of the truth, something she thought only she knew. I watched as the realization dawned on her. Someone knew. Someone had been watching. It was only the beginning, but I could already see the panic in her eyes. As my plan unfolded in the personal realm, I couldn't ignore the parallels in my work life. For too long, I tolerated my boss, John, a man who took advantage of his position, always pushing boundaries and using people as pawns. Watching him felt like seeing a different version of the lies I was uncovering at home. A world where power covered up transgressions. It was as if life were giving me the same lesson twice, daring me to act. I applied the same methods, discreetly setting up ways to monitor John's interactions, especially with Sasha, his secretary. Their connection had been an open secret, but no one had ever dared to expose it. Within days, I had enough evidence, videos, recorded meetings, hushed conversations. John had no idea that his confidence was crumbling under the weight of his own actions, actions I now held like a set of keys, each one unlocking a new opportunity. It wasn't just about revenge. It was about gaining something that had been denied to me. I took what I knew to Sasha, offering her a choice. Support me as I worked to change the company's direction or face the inevitable fallout alone. To my surprise, she became my quiet ally, helping me gather contacts and clients. Together, we built the foundation of something new, an enterprise where John's absence would be unnoticeable, where his loss would be my gain. Watching him operate, blissfully unaware of the trap closing around him, I felt the quiet satisfaction of knowing I'd finally leveled the playing field. The moment to confront John arrived in a perfect storm of timing and quiet planning. With Sasha as my ally, it was simple enough to ensure the evidence reached the right people. Those in the company who had long questioned John's ethics but never had the leverage to challenge him. The news spread through the office like wildfire, igniting whispered conversations, sidelong glances, and finally, a direct confrontation that left him with no choice but to face his secrets. John's reaction was swift and desperate as he scrambled to explain away the mounting accusations. But the truth was woven too tightly around him, a web he could neither control nor escape. With each denial, his authority fractured, and the trust he had manipulated for so long evaporated. Doors that once opened freely to him now closed without hesitation, his closest allies turning their backs as his credibility vanished. I watched from the sidelines, the satisfaction of justice filling me as the man who once dismissed me was left stripped of power and pride. Meanwhile, my own rise within the company felt like the natural unfolding of events. Key clients, familiar with the quality of my work, began turning to me. And even John's once loyal colleagues found a more stable future in the structure I'd laid out. Sasha, the silent witness to John's fall, became invaluable, sharing insights and connections that helped solidify my position. Each decision I made was a step toward stability, each meeting a reminder of what I'd built from the remains of his empire. Watching his self-destruction unfold, I knew this was only the beginning of the life I'd been meant to lead all along. With John's downfall now behind me, I turned my focus back to my marriage. I approached Karina with quiet composure, initiating the divorce without the confrontations or accusations she might have expected. She had no idea I knew everything, which allowed me to guide the process with calm calculation. I suggested an amicable split, ensuring I kept the house and the financial security I'd worked so hard to build over the years. Initially, she tried to negotiate. Her demands, masked as attempts to maintain stability, were clear signs of her desperation, but I remained steady, never showing any hint of my knowledge or intentions. I had already thought through every detail, anticipating her every move. For the first time, I watched as the balance shifted, as she realized she was no longer in control. I could see her struggle, trying to salvage a situation she couldn't fully understand, but my patience was impenetrable, my resolve stronger than ever. When the papers were finally signed, a sense of relief washed over me. A weight I hadn't realized I'd been carrying for so long was gone. The life of deceit we had shared was now behind me, leaving only a sense of satisfaction in knowing I'd handled the situation on my terms. She was left grasping at the remnants, unaware of how carefully I'd maneuvered every piece. As I moved forward, I knew this chapter of my life was firmly closed, and I was ready to build something that truly belonged to me. Once the divorce was final, the ripple effect on Karina's family was almost immediate. Without the financial cushion they'd taken for granted, they began to feel the cracks in their carefully curated world. The luxuries they'd flaunted, the vacations, the designer clothes, the dinners, all began to slip out of reach. And with that shift came the unraveling of their perfect facade, a slow, inevitable descent from the pedestal they had perched upon so confidently. I watched from a distance as they tried to hold onto the life they once mocked others for not having. The irony was striking. The very people who'd lived on the fruits of deception were now stripped bare by their own choices. As their comforts disappeared, so did the friends who had once surrounded them, leaving each of them in a web of isolation they couldn't escape. One by one, they were forced to confront the reality of their lives without the safety net they'd always relied on. Each piece of news I heard from their world was a reminder of the price of duplicity. I didn't need to lift a finger. The consequences were finally catching up to them on their own. And as their lives became defined by struggle and solitude, mine began to flourish. What they'd lost to their own deceptions, I was gaining through a life I was shaping for myself, far from their chaos. With the wreckage of my past life behind me, a fresh chapter began to take shape, one I had once thought impossible. Sasha, who had been a strategic ally, now stood by my side in a new role, her presence a quiet source of stability and warmth I hadn't known I needed. What started as a calculated partnership slowly transformed, evolving into something genuine, something built on respect and shared understanding. Together, we moved into a new home, a place untouched by old memories or past mistakes. Every corner of this space represented a new beginning. Financially, I was on solid ground. With John's former clients and new partnerships secured, my business thrived, each successful deal affirming the path I'd chosen. It was more than just stability. It was a confidence I hadn't felt in years. Sasha and I found a rhythm, a quiet joy in building this life together, free from the shadows that had once haunted me. Her support, her belief in this vision we shared, made every challenge seem achievable, and every success felt all the sweeter for it. As I moved forward, news of Karina and her family's ongoing struggles occasionally drifted my way, but they were distant echoes now, reminders of a world I had outgrown. Each time I thought of them, it only reinforced my conviction that the decisions I'd made had been the right ones. I was no longer bound by deception or weighed down by regrets. What lay ahead was entirely mine, a life shaped by my choices, my hard-earned freedom, and the promise of something real. Looking back now, I see just how profoundly that single decision, to uncover the truth, reshaped my life. Every moment of betrayal, each difficult choice, had come at a cost. Yet, as I sit here today, the sense of peace I've found is unlike anything I ever expected. There's a strange comfort in knowing that those who deceive inevitably face the consequences of their actions. even if they arrive slowly. Moving past Karina and her family taught me the value of self-respect and the strength it takes to rebuild from the ground up. I didn't seek revenge for the sake of hurting anyone, but rather to reclaim the dignity that had been taken from me, piece by piece. It was never about staying rooted in the past, but about setting myself free. Now, I finally understand that the darkest moments of our lives often lead us to our truest selves. I look toward the future with clarity. No longer entangled in lies or chasing illusions, I've found a path that's honest, built on trust and intention. This journey hasn't just been a story of betrayal and redemption, but a reminder that life has its own ways of restoring balance. And while the past may echo faintly in the background, it no longer defines me. What matters now is what I've chosen to build, something real, something mine. And as I step forward, I know I'm ready to face whatever comes next with strength, because, in the end, I've learned how to trust myself.
Keep watching our stories by clicking on one of the videos that appear on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be alerted about new videos. See you next time.